Today, a number of Red Wall MPs are urging the Prime Minister to get a step further and offer voters the chance to scrap net zero entirely. They say that given the complexity of the issue and the sheer level of costs that this will have on the general public, a proper government debate should be held on the matter. Tory MPs in the North and in the Midlands, in particular, fear that it could cost them their seats at the next general election. Well, earlier this year, climate scientists warned that households could potentially face expenses that are at least twice the £4,000 price tag mentioned in the government's assessment, all in the pursuit of achieving the UK's net zero objectives. And it's stuff like that I wonder warrants a referendum. I am joined now by motoring journalist, I should say royalty, Quentin Willson. Quentin, thank you very much. Great to have you in the studio. Look, start with the simple questions, I suppose. Should we have a referendum on net zero?
Well, who's asking for this referendum? Is it the 60 million people in the UK, or is it this, as you described, hardcore of right-wing backbench Tory MPs? And we hear their voices again and again and again trying to derail 2030 and 2050. So I would say, in all respect, that is not the voice of the nation.
I mean, we could find out. I suppose the argument would be that did people know what the costs were going to be? I mean, for example, if you're told initially that if you have a net zero home and you're going to save £6,000, but then you realise that the cost of replacing your boiler and buying electric cars actually outweighs that significantly, did you know what you were signing up for by 2050?
But we don't know that, do we, by 2050? Because the price of boilers, heat pumps and electric cars is going to come down significantly, as they have in the last, 10 years. That progress in 27 years is going to be huge. And we will make lots of money out of net zero as an influential nation that uses this technology for exports and changes assumptions.
We are asking people to believe a promise that has yet not come to fruition. So, for example, like the infrastructure, not enough grid capacity to support electric upgrades, despite the government's plans. We've got Energy Watchdog Ofgem warning households are being blocked from making net zero upgrades to their homes due to a lack of that electricity supply. I understand that it might happen one day, but it might not, and then we'd be screwed.
But the National Grid, and I talk to them regularly, say that, look, if everybody had an electric car now and all plugged in, the increase in electricity would only be 10%. They're confident that they'll be able to do this. And this 27 years, we can do so much. So why is this coterie, and I think that's the right word, of right-wing MPs who are afraid of their constituencies with declining majorities asking for this? And these are ambitious men who want to put themselves in the public eye. And this is a generational thing. And we cannot afford to just squander it because of a few MPs who are making a lot of noise.
You say that, but, I mean, it's not just a right-wing thing, is it? I mean, Labour lost, and they did lose, that Uxbridge by-election based around an expansion to ULEZ, OK, which is a bit of a net zero issue. So, really, if anyone wants to keep their seat, it's not just the right-wing Tories, is it?
No, I know, but and ULEZ is a badly crafted thing at the wrong time, and I don't agree with it. And I think the science of ULEZ is questionable too. And it's no surprise that they won. But look, if we're talking about dismantling what is a public health initiative that 130 other countries have signed up to because Little Britain thinks they want a referendum.
Have they put a date on
mad.
it?
2050.
All 130 countries?
Yeah, it varies slightly, but it's all in that broad time frame.
OK, when it's about the popularity of net zero, a lot of people like to say, well, the vast majority of the public supports it. And it's interesting because when you look at the questions that the public are really asked, it's things like, currently the government is aiming to reduce Britain's carbon emissions. Do you support this aim? Well, 71% of people say yes to that because you'd be a bit of a monster if you said no. But then you ask them, well, currently new gas boilers are expected to be phased out for 2035. Do you support or oppose this aim? And people all of a sudden have to consider whether or not they can pay for one. Well, then all of a sudden only 42% support that. Then you say to them, the sale of new petrol and diesel cars are due to be banned from 2030. Do you support that? And they think, grief, I'm going to have to pay for that as well. Then again, total oppose is 47%. So do you think people really support net zero?
But you can use these surveys to demonstrate anything. And look, we know with electric cars that, they have become very popular. The Tesla Model Y is the best-selling car, not just electric car, in the world. There's a great body of people out there who are afraid of climate change, of what it's doing. They see the news, the wildfires, the floods, the biblical rains, and they want us to do something about it. And for parliamentarians, and I think this is a really important point, for parliamentarians to deliberately, wantonly and mischievously destroy this laudable initiative, environmental initiative, which will lead to better public health, is scandalous.
Will it lead to better public health? I mean, I was having a look at some of the stats last night, actually, about certainly when it came to clean air zones and ULEZ, and they said initially that it's going to take years and years, thousands of people are going to die younger as a result. And you actually look at it, and one of the things was that it might take about 3 days off your life.
There's a huge body of evidence that the particulates, the diesel particulates, PM2.5s, and the nitrogen dioxide in the air has a clear relationship to cancer, heart disease, respiratory disease. I mean, this is not in question. So it's about clearing the air we breathe, for you, for me, for our children and their children. And this is historic. And for these guys to try and take a lump hammer to all this is totally, totally wrong.
But what would you be afraid of, though? Because you've made a series of points here, very clearly, very, you know, intelligently. Surely, if we had a referendum, you could put that to the nation and you'd win.
But if you say to people, shall we have a referendum on not paying tax? Shall we have a referendum on not paying VAT? Shall we have a referendum on not having planning permission? They're all going to say, yes, let's get away with all these things. Let's sweep it away. Let's have a free society. You know,
but fundamentally, if the people don't care, then they don't care.
Well, do they care or don't they care? If we'd had a referendum on the Clean Air Act in 1956 and they said no, millions of people would have died. So, look, you need these nudges, you need this policy to give industry certainty, but also to make sure that we don't, like lead in petrol and benzene in petrol. Would we have had a referendum on that? People would have said, yeah, let's carry on buying it because it makes it cheaper. So there are things like this, which is of monumental historic importance to society, that we need to persevere with and not let these right-wing backbench MPs destroy. It's mischievous.
Well, we say right-wing backbench MPs. I'm going to pick you up again on the idea that Labour might now be rowing back on it because they got an absolute kicking in Uxbridge. But just a quarter of Brits say that they would take a financial hit to accelerate the eco-pledge before 2050. And I think this is the important thing, isn't it, for people? At the moment, people might agree with you that they think this is a big issue, this is a huge issue. But if I'm going to go skint in order to be able to pay for this, whilst China's doing goodness knows what, then I'm not going to do it. I mean, the figures are here, just a quarter of Brits. And this is the kind of thing I think the public should be consulted about. As the true costs of this emerge to people, should they not be having a more robust discussion?
We don't know what those true costs are.
That's the point, isn't it?
Yeah, but look, the benefits are, you know, better jobs, electrification, hydrogen, more nuclear, more onshore wind. You know, this will create, I mean, Jeremy Hunt said £1 trillion worth of economic opportunity. So look at the benefit to people's lives in quality of jobs, quality of wages.
I mean, the unions don't think so, do they? GMB up in Scotland, they're dead against this.
Well, you know, with respect, they would say that because of the oil industry and
because of their jobs.
Yeah. But look, we've got to make those jobs better paid, better skilled, and we've got to take people on this journey. But look, it's not going to be without pain, but it is critically important. The alternative is to do nothing, carry on burning what we're doing, carry on making all this pollution, and then nobody goes forward and we're Little Britain and the rest of the world is laughing at us. And people are, you know, huddling round their gas fires.
Interesting stuff. All right, look, great stuff. I've thoroughly enjoyed having you on. A bit of back and forth.
Pleasure.
You can't beat it, actually. Fantastic stuff. Quentin, thank you very, very much. Quentin Willson there, of course, motoring royalty. As I was saying, make sure that you get your views coming in on all of this.